How's it going, everybody?
Hi. Let's start with some horror bites. This one's, I'm going to jump in right away because I've been waiting to talk about this. I almost did like a 5-minute episode to air because I'm so heated about this. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but there's another Black Christmas coming out. So this is the third, maybe even fourth Black Christmas reboot.
It's a reboot?
Yeah. So the first one they did, it was like in the 1970s. It was a really weird abortion themed horror movie.
Okay.
They remade it in 2008, 2010, somewhere in there. It was actually really good. Like just a nice sorority slasher movie. Great. After that, I've seen it on IMDb. I've never actually seen the movie. They redid it again with a sorority called Black Christmas, but it was all black actors in the sorority. So it was like a literal Black Christmas.
Yeah.
But I've really wanted to watch it, but I can't find it anywhere. But now they're redoing it again. But in this sense, it seems like it's the title only. The movie doesn't, from the preview, it doesn't look anything like the
Previous iterations.
Yeah. Like, so the 2010 one, that one was a remake of the original from the 1970s. It's straight off course. Like, it was a lot bloodier, a lot gorier, more slasher than the first one. But it was at least in the same vein. They used the same idea. This one doesn't. This one looks like, so it's more like a female empowerment movie. It looks like, where instead of like the girls getting picked off and one by one by this mysterious killer, it seems like it's more like somebody breaks in, but they broke into the wrong house.
Okay.
And I would even be fine with that if it was a good. I mean, Carrie Ewells is in it, so that should be good. I don't know, but then news broke this past week that it has a PG-13 rating. So I was immediately turned off by that. And then the next day, I hop on Twitter and see that one of the writers is defending the PG-13 movie by saying, we wanted a bigger audience to be able to see it. We wanted more girls to be able to see it. And just because it's PG-13 doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It does. It does mean it's going to be bad. It's a cop-out. Both of those excuses were literally that. They were excuses. And it just pissed me off so much because I was looking forward to it. Now I don't think I'm even going to watch it when it comes out, even on DVD.
I feel like that argument would work in terms of when it comes to like big blockbuster releases. That's true. Then you're bringing in a broader audience because it's something that everyone's going to want to see. You're not really limiting your audience base there. But when it comes to like these kind of offbeat niche films that aren't meant for mass audiences, that aren't gonna immediately bring in huge revenue, you're really shooting yourself in the foot by limiting what you're allowing yourself to do in the film.
Well, and I mean, this whole idea of like, oh, we need to let younger girls see this. You don't like, and it's not like this is the only movie that's ever had that, and it's been done better. I called my girls in the end of Avengers Endgame. Yeah. When Captain Marvel gets it and they're like, Peter Parker's like, sorry, Spider-Man. He's like, how are you going to get it there? And she's like, she has help. And all the women are there, like all the female superheroes. That was a fantastic female empowerment moment. I called my girls into the room. I was like, you guys got to watch this. My girls are 9 and 6. So like, I was super excited about them getting to see that. Yeah. I'm not excited about some sorority girls beating up some random, I don't know. It's a horror movie. Make it a horror movie. Yeah. I really wanted to get that off my chest because it was really pissing me off. So that's what I have for horror news for this episode.
It almost seems like, because that sounds like a complete departure from the previous version, which is a complete departure from the version before that, and so on and so forth. It almost seems to me like they're just trying to make completely different movies and just use the same, see how many times they can use the same title for a completely different movie as they possibly can. It's kind of crazy.
Now that that's off my chest, I just have one more thing that's a little bit more lighter. I'm a huge fan of the Tremors series. It's one of those series that, as long as they make them, I'm going to watch them no matter how bad they get. And they just announced they're filming Tremors 7 right now.
Oh, they are filming now.
They're taking place on an island in Thailand. And the premise seems stupid, but at the same time, not bad. Yeah. It's like, they're being really cagey about what the whole plot is, but it sounds like a billionaire flies in the graboids to this island for hunting. Okay. And then obviously something goes haywire. They got to call in Bert. But I'm super excited for it. So with that being said, I think we can speak of scary.
All right. Let's jump right into it.
So it being Thanksgiving time, there's not a lot of Thanksgiving horror movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
Hulu just did one, actually. So
I think this is their second Thanksgiving themed one, actually, for the Into the Dark series.
Maybe.
I think it is.
But Tyler and I just watched the Hulu one.
Yes.
Pilgrim. And I think we're both in agreement that it was not good.
It committed a cardinal sin for me in films, which is that it can't decide on what theme or what tone, more importantly, that it wants to have. It jumps back and forth really jarringly between telling a serious story and being silly and kind of over the top. And that for me, and some people are okay with that, but for me personally, I find that contrast and tone to be inconsistent and really jarring for me, because I'm trying to be one moment I'll be trying to take really invested in the story and trying to care about the characters and what's happening to them, and then literally 10 seconds later I'm sitting here questioning whether or not I'm supposed to be laughing at the circumstances that I was just dreading moments before. So that really bothers me, and I think they're at a similar the best example I can think of this is the TV show Gotham, if you're familiar with that at all.
Yeah.
There was moments where it tried to be very, very serious and tell a real world crime story sort of thing. But then other moments, particularly involving Jada Pinkett Smith's character and the Penguin character, I can't remember the actor's name. Whenever those characters suddenly come up here on screen, the tone of the show completely does a 180 and wants you to stop taking it seriously. And so for me, going from serious to making light of itself is not, how would I phrase this? It's too jarring, I guess, is all I can really say. It's just too jarring, and it doesn't really flow well for me.
To add a layer onto that, did you catch in the beginning where it says it's based on semi-true events or something like that? So to have it jump back and forth between the seriousness and the silliness on top of the fact that it was apparently based on true events.
Well, I think they can just say that, can't they? I don't think that actually has to be based on true events. I'm pretty sure they can just say oh, hey, this people always random. There's this group of people who decides to do pilgrim reenactment thing, and that's literally, it could be that simple. It doesn't even it could be anything violent. It could just be a weird business.
Yeah. There's a lot of a
lot of
the
leeway with that.
Strangers. Mm-hmm. They say, oh, it's based on true events, but the true events it was based on are Sharon Tate's murder by the Manson family, which is nothing compared to what the actual movie was about.
Yeah. A home invasion is pretty much the extent of the commonalities between them.
And and then there's so many things wrong with the movie. Why would anyone invite Thanksgiving reenactment people to their house anyway? Because who has the time, money, or patience for that?
Right.
And for two, then she was random oh, and they're staying with us for a week. Why?
The entire week. And they showed up early too.
Yeah, but why would they be
several days early? I mean, they immediately thought that was weird, but then okay, I guess it's just fine. We'll just deal with it because my daughter's a bitch.
Invite a random stranger into your house for a week because
Right.
But anyway, that's not actually what we're even here to talk about today. That just reminded me. We're here to talk about the I don't know if iconic's the right word. Legendary, maybe.
Notorious.
The one, the only Thankskilling.
Yes.
We're going to spend our time today focusing on only Thankskilling. We know that there's a sequel, but we're going to save that for another time. I have watched it, I think, every year for the past 4 or 5 years now. Just that's my Thanksgiving ritual. Mm-hmm. But Tyler just got to watch it for the first time.
Yeah, I had heard about it previously from a friend of ours named Anthony, who we'll probably end up having on the show as a guest at some point.
Definitely.
But I'd heard stories, so finally getting to experience it was an experience.
So if you guys haven't watched it yet, it's something else. It's really hard to explain.
Basic premise: long ago in the days of pilgrims. The pilgrims did some bad things to the Native Americans, as we know. However, a Native American spell or ritual, whatever you want to call it, ends up giving rise to a killer turkey whose mission is to go around killing the pilgrims or white people or whatever it is that it's been targeting. That's been decided that's going to target.
You heard him right. It's a killer turkey.
Yes. And it is full sock puppet. Excuse me. It is full sock puppet form.
Yeah, and the movie is it's really bad. It's so bad, but it's also so self-aware that it's bad.
Yeah.
It's super tongue-in-cheek.
Mm-hmm.
I think they break the fourth wall at least a couple times.
Yeah, the turkey in particular does, or I should say turkey, Turkie, as his name is spelt.
And there's so many. I mean, there's so much stupid stuff that goes on in this movie. I mean, the turkey's vulgar.
He talks and just has the most hilarious voice.
He at one point cuts somebody's face off and puts it on his face, and then pretends
to be her father.
And everyone just knows, or they just acts like that, like
Spoiler
they
alert.
wouldn't. Yeah. Like know that's a turkey wearing somebody's face. So everything about it is just
super silly.
But it's this enigma where it's not so bad it's good. It's like it's a train wreck is what it is.
Yeah.
Like you want to take your eyes off of it, but you can't. So I wanted to talk to Tyler about it and delve in a little bit more, like, why is this movie the way it is?
Why is it worth watching? Even
so I dug up a few notes on it that I wanted to talk about. The movie was shot over 11 days, which I don't know if you know anything about movies, but like that's really short.
Yep.
And then the budget was only $3,500, which I'm actually impressed with that.
I'm pretty sure this was a film school project, wasn't this?
It seems like
I'm pretty sure this was.
But at $3,500, you can't really do a lot for $3,500.
No.
So, when you think about it in that context, that it was 11 days and $3,500, they did a pretty decent job.
They made the full turkey prop. Not to mention the gore and other effects like that were not too bad, actually. So I think the majority of their budget probably went to paying the actors and just the practical effects.
Yeah, well, even like the practical effects I was reading, I don't know if this is in my notes or if I read it, but when the rather robust man is shot and they do like a close-up of his insides, they used pantyhose stuffed with I don't know what, but I thought that was really inventive, like
a way of showing his intestines or whatever
with the practical effects.
Yeah.
The opening scene,
it's memorable.
That's how I got. I didn't get Tyler to watch it that way. I just warned him about it.
Yeah.
So in the opening scene, it is close up on a woman's robust chest, and it turns out, and bare chest. It turns out they shot that in a public park without a permit.
Yes.
So they could have gotten a little bit of trouble for that.
And it does have one of the best opening one-liners of any movie I've ever seen.
And that's actually an adult film star too, which
Really?
I don't know how they got her.
I was not aware of that.
I'm sure she wasn't that expensive, but still, when you're only working with $3,500.
Yeah, you take what you can get, I guess.
Oh, so at first nobody wanted, for some crazy reason, nobody wanted to distribute the film. Now you can find it a lot of places.
Yeah.
Streaming. You can find it on Vudu. I think Tyler said he saw it on Shudder.
No, I actually watched it on not Vudu. There was another one.
Tubi.
I watched it on Tubi TV.
So it's available a couple places, but they couldn't distribute it anywhere. No one would pick it up. So they made their own DVDs and sold it on Amazon, and it took a year to reach 1,000 copies sold.
Yep.
So they believed in it enough. I don't know if that's
and from there, it's
bad.
kind of given to like a bit of a cult following now at this point. Not exactly an overnight success story like the Paranormal Activity.
Yeah. So, but I mean, what do you think it is? What is it that makes this movie so enjoyable when it's so bad?
If I had to summarize it, I would probably say it's got that fun factor where it's definitely a movie that you could sit down, maybe not with your family, but with a group of friends. Like it's like a Friendsgiving, if you will, where you get a bunch of people together and maybe just have some drinks and then watch a silly, stupid movie that fits the season. I think this would just be like the perfect sort of social gathering party movie because it's just silly and ridiculous enough that it'll keep you entertained.
Before I had kids that were old enough to know what was going on, I would watch it with my sister, like when we sat down for Thanksgiving. My dad would be like, "What the hell are you guys watching?" My dad, it's so funny because my dad cannot handle horror movies at all.
Yeah.
And he's constantly shaking his head because my sister, she's not as big a fan as me, but she likes them. And he's like, "How did I raise two kids who love these movies?" And he can't handle it. And it's it's funny every time.
I will also say that I think the crowning achievement of the movie is the turkey's character itself. Super fun character.
It really
absolutely
is.
ridiculous and over the top, has excellent one-liners. The person, it just explodes. It's brimming with personality. Turkey is brimming with personality.
You think that you can't get more ridiculous than a talking turkey, but then it does get more ridiculous.
Yeah. Won't spoil how, but I will also say just it's got a charm to it. Turkey himself has a certain charm to him because it is basically a glorified sock puppet, where it's very clearly just a man's arm inside like a rubber turkey making the mouth motions. And it's I don't know, just watching the way it kills people too is just endlessly hilarious.
I guess to sum it up the best way possible was you have to see it to believe it.
Yeah.
There's just like an intangible thing about this movie that, and maybe it's different for everybody. Maybe everyone sees something different in why it's so bad it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really wanted to, with Thanksgiving coming up, I really wanted to talk about Thankskilling. And in the future, next year, hopefully we'll still be doing this. And we'll talk about Thankskilling 3, which is a whole nother beast. They got way more funding. They crowdsourced it.
Thankskilling 3 is the proper title of the sequel. There is no Thankskilling 2.
Correct. And we'll talk about that when we get to there. But yeah, so it was just a whole other beast. But with that being said, I'm going to surprise Tyler with our new segment that's 3 questions. And I'm going to ask Tyler 3 questions that he is not prepared for and get his
candid
answers
answers
off the top of his head. So my first question, with Christmas coming up, what do you think about the marriage of Christmas and horror? Christmas is always not supposed to, but it's from what the commercialization of Christmas, we have Santa Claus and Elf on the Shelf and happy good times and presents and candy. I think there may be more horror Christmas movies than there are horror Halloween movies. So what do you think about the marriage of those two?
I think the reason for that is simply because of the dichotomy between the two. You have on one hand the season that's supposed to like represent and embody family and kindness and generosity and peace and, you know, all these wonderful happy feelings. And then on the other hand, but then you're taking this and you're flipping this entire concept on its head and you're turning this supposedly perfect season time of the year into an absolute nightmare, or it's usually to really comedic effect. There's a couple that I would say that are more kind of on the serious side. I think Krampus, might have been, if I remember correctly.
Krampus walks a line.
It does, if I remember correctly, because I think I remember that one being a little bit more.
It is on the more serious side, but there's definitely a lot of comedic elements.
Yeah, there's definitely some moments. I think it was mostly like the grandfather, if I remember correctly, that was more like kind of like the central character of. I might be misremembering. Grandmother,
I believe.
Oh yes, you're right. I might be thinking of a different one. But yeah.
I think, well, maybe not. I'm not going to say.
But yeah, so I think it's the fact that you're taking something and then handling it or transforming it into the opposite of what its intended form is. And so I think that's why it has that so much appeal. I guess I would also compare that to when you take, it's like horror comedy in a way too. It's the same thing when you take something that's supposed to be scary and then make it funny. It kind of has that effect where like Scary Movie would just exploded in popularity because they took all these concepts of classic horror films and then made light of it or whatever. So it's pretty funny. I don't know. I think that's why it has such a lasting appeal, is you're just taking something and flipping on its head.
So this next one's really going to put you on the spot and you're going to be making law here.
Uh-oh.
When is it okay to start watching Christmas horror movies?
I mean, personally, I don't think there's a time limit. I mean, really, if you just feel like watching a movie, just watch the movie.
Right,
but I
feel like November 15th.
But I feel like when you're in that season, then it's kind of obligatory. So I would say year round, but then you have an obligation to watch those sort of movies around that time specifically. So
Fair. I like that answer. I actually, there's so many just horror movies that I was like, I looked at my wife and I was like, we got to start watching them now. We're not going to get through them. I mean, we go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, so it's not like we can watch 2 or 3 a night.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just Silent Night, Deadly Night, that series by itself has 5 movies. So it's like 5 nights right there. And then Santa's Sleigh, Krampus, like, I'm not going to give you a whole list right now. There's a lot of them.
I'm gonna pull a fast one on you here. I'm gonna ask you a question before you ask me your third one. So, this is a huge matter of debate for a lot of people, usually in the younger crowd, but you might have some thoughts on this. The Nightmare Before Christmas, Halloween movie or Christmas movie?
Man, I don't have an answer to that. I've heard that question before, and I don't have an answer to that. To be honest, I don't dislike the movie, but I'm not as enchanted with it as a lot of other people are. So I don't have any skin in the game.
Okay.
But if I were to, someone put a gun to my head, I'd say Christmas movie.
So I'm actually in agreement with you there. So we can consent. We have a consensus on this. Takes place on Christmas.
Yeah, the Santa Claus part of it, So, yeah, that's what I'd say. And I mean, it's a perfect transition movie. Watch it once in Halloween and then again in Christmas time.
I think a lot of people are going to argue with us about this, but our opinions are our own. You're entitled to yours. Anyway, third question.
They are rumored that there's going to be a Saw TV show. How do you think a Saw TV show would work?
I don't think it would. I'm pretty sure it's just going to fall flat on its face. I don't really see any way reasonably that could be turned into a series format.
The continuity sucked in the 7 movies they made.
Exactly.
So
I just don't think that concept just fundamentally would not work as a series, as an ongoing storyline. Just wouldn't.
Fair enough.
The only reason why the Saw movies work the way they did is because you had a clear beginning, middle, and end in each segment. I mean, with a TV series, you have to try to draw that out into an entire season, which a lot of those Saw movies are already too long as it was. So
yeah, and I mean, where would you go for the gore porn? It would have to be on HBO or something like that.
Yeah, some sort of streaming service, most likely.
But I'm sure we'll see it. I'm sure the rumors will be true.
And I'm sure the first season will be pretty popular, and then after that, it'll probably just fade into nothingness again.
I mean, I'm not interested at all, to be honest. Like,
give it a try.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do that's gonna surprise me? Or like, they're just gonna have to keep making up more stuff that makes the story more convoluted.
Yeah.
And then messes with continuity even more. All right, and with that, we're gonna suggest our movies of the week that some maybe flew under the radar or just didn't get the attention we thought they should. So I'm gonna let Tyler go first this week. I always take the.
All right, so I'm actually going to suggest 2 movies, 2 being a first part in a sequel. So the movies that I'm going to be suggesting are Stakeland 1 and 2. I know for sure that they're on Shudder. When I saw them, they were on Netflix, but I'm not sure if they're still on there. So if they're not on Netflix, you can definitely find them on Shudder at this point. Stakeland the movies are about a vampire apocalypse, essentially. So it's post-apocalyptic horror, but not quite zombie. The vampires in this movie aren't like intelligent beings necessarily. They're very rabid wild animals, kind of. They're more animalistic, just in general. But the movie the first one follows a vampire hunter, a seasoned survivor who takes a younger kid under his wing and kind of teaches him to be an expert vampire slayer. And so it just kind of details them going around in the post-apocalyptic wasteland trying to survive hordes of vampires. And the sequel follows up with the same characters and just continues the storyline overall. They are extremely entertaining. They didn't get a whole lot of attention, a whole lot of marketing. I only just found them because they just happened to pop up in my recommended list on Netflix at the time. But what's there, it's not going to wow you, but I'd say that they're entertaining movies, and then there's really no apparent glaring flaws with them. They're not really comedy, but they do try to tell a genuine story. There is some like a little more ridiculous elements to it, but it's not that total shift in tone that I mentioned earlier in this episode, where it's just like a kind of conflict really. So it does maintain a more serious tone to it, and does try to tell a genuine story about the characters and their journey and their experiences. So don't go into super high expectations, but if you go into with very mediocre expectations, you'll be pleasantly surprised by what you find there. So, yep.
Nice. So I am going to talk about, with Christmas coming up again, one of my many favorite Christmas horror movies, but this one is over the top, and I feel like it doesn't get the attention it deserves because it is so silly, but it's actually really good. For one, let me start by saying the runtime of this movie is only an hour and 15 minutes, which is
that's not bad at all.
A lot of like Netflix TV shows last that, but this is a feature-length film starring wrestler Bill Goldberg as Santa Claus. And it's basically, the whole premise is Santa Claus is Satan's son, and he lost a bet to an angel a long time ago, and which made him be good for 1,000 years and deliver presents to kids. But that 1,000 years is up, and he's coming to exact revenge. So Santa's evil. And it's really just like an over the top slasher. Like Santa's just he goes to a strip club at one point and like kills everyone in there. Like he's just like an over the top murderous Santa. He kills a Jewish guy with a menorah. But one of the many things that I love about this movie is in the opening scene. And this, if you're listening to this and you're younger, you probably won't even like know these names. But in the opening scene of this movie, this family's eating dinner and Santa comes down the chimney and kills them all. But the family is James Caan, Fran Drescher, Chris Kattan, and Rebecca Gayheart, which in 2019, those names don't hold as much weight. But when the movie was made, all those people were pretty well known.
Back in 2005, I believe.
So, yeah. So,
I do remember the movie now.
For that opening scene, I was just like, somebody was owed a lot of favors to call those people in for this terrible movie. But if you've never seen it, it's actually not bad. Like it's bad, but it's not
unwatchable. It's not unwatchable.
Yeah, it's really it's a comedy. Really, it's a horror comedy, and it's just like pleasantly surprising. And Goldberg, just having Bill Goldberg, like the wrestler in a movie, is silly enough already. And he plays the role really well as this in a comedic murderous Santa role. So I don't know. I own it, so I don't have to go search for it. We'll link to it because I know it's on Amazon, so you guys can find it there. I don't know if it's available anywhere else. I know it's actually kind of expensive to buy, like to actually buy is like $15. So if you can stream it, maybe do that before you put down the money. But I bought it because I like watching it every year.
Nice.
With that, I think we're gonna say goodbye.
I think I'm gonna make an announcement quick. Really, for those of us who've already been listening to us on SoundCloud, we really greatly appreciate your audience and your viewing. We are looking into moving everything over to Spotify. So once we get that figured out, we will be uploading all of our current episodes, and then probably all the future ones will be going on there too, for people's convenience. So it'll be easier to find.
We do want to put on YouTube too eventually.
Yes, that would also be a long-term goal for us as well.
We
just need to get some graphic art.
As we work this stuff out. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for sticking with us.